You have to include Charles Oliveira in that against Khabib.
UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling believes Charles Oliveira deserves to be in the lightweight GOAT conversation. After taking out Benil Dariush at UFC 289, Oliveira has a win against every fighter in the lightweight top 5 right now. And with a title win and defense to his name, Sterling thinks he deserves to be sitting at the top of the pile.
What's the criteria for that? Is it just accolades? Because if it's just accolades, Charles Oliveira has a pretty damn good resume. From title defenses, style points on finishes, been in the game longer. So for me, I think he has to be within that conversation. You have to include Charles Oliveira in that against Khabib.
Daniel Cormier has a different take to it. Forget about Khabib. DC believes Oliveira isn't even better than Islam Makhachev.
And as Makhachev tweeted, there are levels to this game. Charles Oliveira proved tonight that if he is not the champion, he is just slightly below Islam as the second level. He's 1A to Islam Makhachev's champion.
That being said, Cormier does admit that Oliveira has made tremendous improvements since his loss to Makhachev, and a rematch between the two would be a lot better than their vacant lightweight title-fated UFC 280, where Makhachev won pretty comfortably.
So I envision we're going to see Makhachev versus Oliveira 2 in Abu Dhabi, and I anticipate this will be a better fight than we saw the first time, because now Charles Oliveira has been in there with Islam. But this kid's a star. This kid is one of the best fighters in the world.
Khabib Nurmagomedov or Charles Oliveira? Who is the lightweight GOAT according to you guys? The Ultimate Fighter Season 31 contestant Kurt Holloway has revealed why Michael Chandler is a far better coach than quote-unquote very annoying Conor McGregor. But before we learn more about that story, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thank you. Team Conor McGregor has now lost all of their 3 fights to Team Michael Chandler, and former UFC fighter and TUF 31 contestant Kurt Holloway thinks it's because of the coaching styles of the two fighters. In an exclusive interview with MMA Junkie, Holloway revealed how his TUF coach Chandler is a professional, unlike McGregor, who annoyed the crap out of him during filming. Quote, McGregor doesn't do a lot of the coaching himself. He brings a lot of his coaches in. He kinda takes a back step and lets his coaches do all the work. But here comes fight night, and you've got Conor running around the cage, coaching from the outside. I'm like, why don't you get in this guy's corner and coach him rather than be on the outside just yelling crap? It was very annoying. In contrast, Chandler's training methods were far better than what Holloway could have imagined. From wrestling to striking to everything in between, Chandler allowed his students to make the most of their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Here's what Holloway had to say about Chandler, and I quote, wrestling was one of the main things with wanting to be on Michael Chandler's team. It was just for that wrestling training aspect. I felt that one of the only things that I maybe lack a little bit is some wrestling and being able to get up off the bottom. Chandler would make an amazing coach once he rides into the sunset. I felt like the way he coached us and the pep talks and just keeping us up whenever we started to fall a little bit, you'd think he'd been coaching guys his whole life. Team McGregor's Aaron McKenzie begs to differ, however. In a recent interview, he revealed that the Irishman was very involved and had great energy throughout the season.
We all saw Conor's last season where he was hands off. He let Cav, he let Roddy, he let those guys take over and do their thing. Well, this season, he didn't do that. He was out there, he was gung-ho, he was ready to go. He was putting in his 2 cents, he was leading practices. My guy was absolutely involved, and he had a really great energy when he was there in the practices.
Jorge Masvidal was over the moon after meeting Donald Trump at a restaurant in Miami, Florida, hours after the former U.S. president's June 13th trial in his federal court case that alleges him of storing highly sensitive documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate and lying and obstructing when federal officials tried to retrieve them, according to the Washington Post. The arraignment took place in Miami, Florida, and after its conclusion, Trump visited a local restaurant in Little Havana, where he was greeted by Masvidal.
All right, let's get a picture. Come on. Oh my God. Great champ. Just don't fight him. Come this way, sir. Justin, come this way.
Masvidal retired from MMA after losing to Gilbert Burns at UFC 287, and now plans to transition into the world of boxing, like many other MMA superstars.
Definitely I would box. That's something I wanted to do, especially as I started progressing more in my skill set. And I have a pro boxing fight that took place like 14, 15 years ago. Boxing was like my first love. So I would definitely do a boxing match if the UFC would permit me. They'd have to give me permission. They'd have to be like, yeah, go do your thing, you know. If not, can't do no boxing match.
Henry Cejudo is willing to go a division up or down if nobody wants to fight him at bantamweight. Cejudo most recently fought at UFC 288, where he lost to Aljamain Sterling by decision. He's now targeting a fight against Aljo's bestie, Merab Dvalishvili. But if the Georgian doesn't sign the contract soon, Cejudo will move down to flyweight and fight champion Brandon Moreno if he gets past Alexandre Pantoja at UFC 290.
Bring him up, and then who knows? Who knows? If the UFC is willing to offer me a bunch of money to go down to 125, I'll do it. You know, but that's not my plan. But if Brandon wants to smoke, and I know what I used to do to him in sparring, if he wants to smoke, if he gets past Pantoja, which I know he won't, you know, I'll be willing to do that fight too.
If Moreno isn't willing to lock horns with him either, Cejudo plans on moving up to featherweight to fight the best boxer in the UFC, baby.
Just do that. Like if they're gonna just sideline me or whatever, like there's, you know, after the fight after Merab, like, or if nothing takes place, like, dude, I'd be willing to challenge Holloway. As shitty as I looked against Aljamain, I know when the stakes are high, dude, that's when I can really compete. And you know, getting those 5 rounds under my belt has built that callus for me to be able to take another good fight and be ready.
Does Henry Cejudo stand a chance against Max Holloway? Miranda Maverick received tons of death threats after suffering a tough loss at the hands of Jasmine Jasdavicius at UFC 289. The loss, as Maverick explained, was mostly down to her suffering an eye injury early in the fight that left her blind in her left eye by the 3rd round. Fortunately, Maverick regained her vision a few hours later, but she described it as a major scare in an Instagram post. MMA fans, especially those who would bet on her to win, weren't happy, and they went as far as sending her death threats and messages telling her to die by suicide. This is what Maverick said in an Instagram post, quote, "I've received so many death threats and messages telling me to commit suicide, kill myself, etc. in the past 2 days. It's insane. Just because we have a blue check by our names doesn't mean we're invincible. Mind you, I ignore these clowns, but to those who struggle with what social media thinks of you, remember, most keyboard warriors don't have much to show for their lives. Go after something with all the effort you have, and regardless of the result, know you put your all on the line. And to you pieces of shit who say such hateful things, I hope you never experience the pain of having someone say or do the same to you. God bless you all." That's it for today. If you have something to say about today's stories or our videos in general, please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. We appreciate your feedback. To stay up to date with the latest happenings in the world of MMA, please subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thanks for your continued love and support, and we'll see you in the next one.